everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Outside Line Podcast. The Outside Line Podcast. Outside Line Podcast.
Hang on to her, buddy. There's still three. He got him. He's on the side.
It just makes sense. It's too logical for them, for NASCAR, though.
Carson.
I'm glad you hear us, NASCAR. Make sure you keep listening. We'll see what happens. I'm going to take a breath here. That was a long rant.
Those cars are a lot tougher than an F1 car.
Yeah, that's what I like about IndyCar. You really need the spotter.
This is going to be fun. Starting with Charlotte last weekend, Truck Series winner at Charlotte. So we had all three series at Charlotte last weekend. One of my personal favorite tracks, more so because it's my home track in North Carolina. So Ben Rhodes got the win at Charlotte in the truck race, led 37 laps. It was his first win of the season, so good for him on that one. And we actually saw a pattern last week at Charlotte. All the winners last week across all three series were first-time winners on the season. So Justin Allgaier, first win of the season, led 83 laps on a huge fuel mileage race. That was fun to watch.
It was a very interesting finish. Obviously, we had to wait until Monday evening to get that finish. But, I mean, there were guys that were running out of fuel left and right. And Allgaier and Nemechek were so far off the gas towards the end of that race. It was a fuel-saving masterclass by Justin Allgaier, and it's the exact reason he's the number one at Junior Motorsports. And it was a prime reason why he's going to be the first guy to get that win there almost every year. And he showed it this week last week at Charlotte because he was phenomenal when it came to saving fuel. The announcers didn't know if he was going to have enough, and there were guys you knew kind of who could have enough, who didn't. And Allgaier saved the right amount of fuel, but very interesting. I mean, they were literally 40 miles an hour off of the gas compared to what they would normally be on a normal lap. It was like trying to play NASCAR 07 and you're just trying to stretch the fuel as long as you possibly can. That's what it felt like. And so it was just a very interesting finish, definitely a good finish for sure, and a big congrats to Justin Allgaier.
This is another reason why we don't need stages, because fuel mileage races can be very exciting.
Yeah, we could have seen that at Coda earlier this year with the Cup Series, but we had all those overtime finishes, and that was going to turn into a mileage race, but obviously it didn't. So, stage racing, obviously we all know how we feel about this. It's taken away fuel mileage races for the most part.
Tire wear races, a lot of strategy.
Yeah. But first win for Allgaier in the Xfinity Series this year. First win for Junior Motorsports as well on the season, which is crazy to think about because we're already, 12, 13 races into the season. So
to put it into perspective, the Fox portion of the schedule ends this weekend, folks. This upcoming weekend, the Fox portion of the schedule is done. We're on NBC. The Chicago Street Course race has 2 races in between it, this weekend and then Nashville. The season is getting heated up quickly. We talked about it prior. I've never been this excited for a summer stretch as I am this year. It's going to be a great summer stretch. So we are a big chunk of the way through the year. So to think Junior Motorsports hasn't won this far into the year, that is very unprecedented. And I don't know if anybody had that on their bingo card entering this year for sure.
You say the Fox portion of the calendar is about to end. That always makes me sad because I always prefer the Fox broadcast over the NBC broadcast. That's just me.
See, I've always been 50-50, right? Like, I think Fox does a good job in some areas, but where I think NBC excels, and they do it with the IndyCar. They do a great job of it with IndyCar. And it's a big plus to Lee Diffie, but I think just NBC in general, they add stakes. And I feel like when we watch races on NBC, whether it's a regular season race or a race during the playoffs, it feels like there's more on the line. There's more stakes, and the reactions are there a little bit more. And I give credit to Fox because there was a lot of talk about the way some of the crashes, the ending to the Daytona 500 when Kyle Larson gets turned and he got turned, like that sort of thing. It's a credit to Fox. They have improved throughout the year, and it's a credit to Clint Boyer. I think Clint Boyer has improved as a broadcaster throughout the year as well. especially with some of the excitement in those areas. But I like each of them for different reasons. And I think the main reason I like NBC is that excitement level. But I will be sad to see Fox go, mainly because I love getting to hear Mike Joy. And I do like Clint Boyer. I like the smaller booth and everything like that. There's a lot to like about Fox. Fox, I think, for any NASCAR fan, just feels like home.
Yeah, especially when DW is up there. When it's DW, Larry McReynolds, and Mike Joy. That, to me, that just feels normal.
No, I agree. I think it's been hard to kind of like, that's part of where Fox has struggled. And I think that's where they're really looking forward to getting Kevin Harvick in the booth next year and getting another booth established, because it's been a little bit weird the last couple of years. You get random people in the booth each week. But then also, even when Jeff Gordon was there, the booth wasn't the same. And I think that, I always have contributed to that, to the fact that Larry Mack's not in there. If you had a booth with Larry Mack, Boyer, and Joy, I think it works out really well. They've just never wanted to go that route. So I've always been one of the big supporters of, if Larry Mack's in the booth, it's a good booth. I love Larry Mack in the booth. I miss getting to hear, pull those belts tight one more time before every race. I miss that sort of thing. So Larry Mack in the booth is something that, God, I wish would happen, but clearly it's not going to.
Yeah, and I miss DW too. I miss DW awful bad. I like Clint Boyer, don't get me wrong, but I miss DW. I just grew up with him, I think, is the big part.
Yeah.
And I remember when he was on Junior's podcast, he told the best stories, man.
Oh, yeah.
But I always think DW was better without that sort of network hand holding that he had to deal with. I mean, obviously the networks push the Waltrip boys to be a little more quirky and goofy than they really are in real life. And I think that shows when he goes onto a podcast or something, right? And he's a very different guy than he is on TV. And so I loved him on TV, but I also wish they would have given him more reign to be himself. He's not always that goofy guy. And I think that it brought too much of a negative light onto him, that he's not appreciated enough for his time that was in the booth, in my opinion.
I remember that, and I was thinking they didn't do that when Fox started NASCAR. He was pretty straight too, although of course he was a little bit goofy, but that was just him. But then they overdid it.
Mm-hmm. I think that it's what we do best in NASCAR, isn't it? Find what works and then overdo the hell out of it. That is the definition of the sport. And
now it kind of made him look like a crazy old man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Towards the end, it felt like people had lost, like people didn't respect the knowledge that he still had, because that he was being forced to kind of have that quirkiness and that silliness all the time. That when he did have really knowledgeable things to talk about, it just wasn't looked at the same anymore. It was different. Because it's like, well, what's this silly guy talking about? Like, do I really want to believe him? When in reality, DW was just telling the truth and telling what his really, really great racing mind had,
Yeah. And now shifting back, going into NBC. I mean, they do a great job with IndyCar. I love Townsend Bell to death. He explains things so well. He's not afraid to say, hey, I disagree, or hey, I don't think this is, I don't think you're, stuff like that. But I don't know about their NASCAR broadcast, just because Jeff Burton, to me, I respect him to death as a driver, but he just kind of annoys me as an announcer. And Junior, I don't think is a very good color announcer. He's very good as a host and in the studio. And, of course, in his podcast. But I don't think he's all that great of a color commentator during a race.
Jacob, what are your thoughts?
I mean,
Jacob wants to go move back on to Charlotte now.
Kind of, yeah. I honestly, here's my thoughts. I don't pay huge attention to the broadcast for announcer side and stuff like that. But I would rather watch the NBC broadcast because they give a bigger uh, analysis on everything because they've got all the graphics and whatnot for the new car, and they do a better job at explaining different parts of the next gen car. So that's my quick thought
They need
about
Larry though.
yeah, yeah, they need someone like Larry Mack, but that's just my quick thought about
Disrespect Steve Letarte like that. How dare
I
you?
listen, you see the two Jeff Gordon posters I've got on my wall back there. I love Steve Letarte.
Letarte is personally one of my favorite commentators. I think he does an excellent job. And to your point about some of the IndyCar commentators, I think he does a fantastic job of explaining things in a way. There's a way of it. You have to explain things that you don't want to make it so you think that the person listening sounds stupid, but you're explaining it in a way that makes sense for people. Like, I give Regan Smith a lot of credit for this. He does a really good job as a pit road reporter of when he's giving whatever his speech is about Ryan Blaney coming into pit road. He'll sometimes slip in there like he's going to get a wedge adjustment that's going to make him a little bit more tight. It's going to allow the car to turn a little bit more. Like, he does a really good job of just throwing those in there really fast so the average fan can hear all that and go, oh, okay, I kind of understand what he's saying. So I mean, it just depends on the guy, and I think Steve Letarte can do a good job of that. But at the same time, I'm giving my credit to Regan Smith because he is one of the best guys at doing that for sure.
Yeah, honestly, I think I would rather see him up there over Jeff Burton.
I think Regan Smith, like in an Xfinity style booth, you put him in there and they used to do that every now and then, and I thought he was good up there. I think he would be solid in that position, but I wish he could be like a pit road reporter that does like Fox in the spring and then moves over to NBC in the fall. That would be great because he's really good for the sport and for the average fan. Because like I said, it's all about for the average fan tuning in. It's about explaining it to them in a way that they don't feel stupid for not knowing. And so Regan Smith does a fantastic job of doing that, and also just keeping it so like as a fan who already may know that knowledge, you don't feel like why does he have to say that? You're like I'm glad he's putting that out there. There's that difference in opinion there that I think is good. Should we move back to Charlotte?
Yes. Let's get back to Charlotte. Our Coca-Cola 600 champion was YRB after it was delayed. Finally, it was delayed to Monday, so he had to wait a little extra for that long winless drought to finally end. Led 163 laps and dominated the Coca-Cola 600. I don't know what else to say. It was just a very dominant win, and
but it wasn't boring.
It was a great race. It was a fantastic race. I'm not going to say it was better than last year, but it was a great race.
Oh no, there was great racing all throughout the field, and I don't have a number one driver since Tony has retired, but if there's one guy that I root for, it is Ryan Blaney. So him getting to, finally stop that winless drought in a race that's not the All-Star race. Like, I think what gets forgotten is he has that winless drought, but he did win the All-Star race too. But at the same time, definitely a really good day for him. And you saw the emotion at the end of it. That's the exact reason why races like that are special. And it's exactly why we get excited for a guy like Ryan Blaney to get a victory, because he made a good point. You don't ever know if you're ever going to end up back in victory lane, and you start to doubt yourself. And that's where, recently this past week on the BSP Twitter, I had posted, how many more races does Ryan Blaney win after this? Because he's going to have his swagger back. Glass Case of Emotion returns this upcoming week. If you guys are a fan of that podcast, used to listen to it back in the day. So he's got his swagger back. How much does that affect him these next few weeks when it comes down to it? I think he may really, really kind of come on in this summer stretch, and he may have a really solid, summer going forward. He led 83 laps yesterday. He finished 6th yesterday. He had a good run this weekend. He's got his swagger back. I'm looking at Ryan Blaney, and I'm hoping for really big things this summer. But if he really is the Casey Kane of NASCAR, I will be feeling disappointed by episode 20. So everybody keep that in mind. All right? Got it.
It's kind of like the ketchup bottle theory. It's hard to get everything out, the ketchup out, but once you get it out, it all comes out.
Yeah.
100%.
He, like you're talking about, he may have his swagger back. He is now the regular season point leader after Gateway. So might be onto something there. Mr. Consistency is right now he is young Ryan Blaney. And speaking of,
he's kept pace with Byron, real quick. I just want to say he's kept pace with Byron. The only thing that's different between him and Byron is obviously the wins. Byron has 3 more top 5s, but they've got the same amount of top 10s. And the biggest note as well, let me put this out there. Out of the top 20 drivers in the field, there are 2 without a DNF. That belongs to Ryan Blaney, and it belongs to Alex Bowman. So there are, and I think there's 3 in the entire field without a DNF. The third one would be Corey LaJoie. So Blaney's kept it clean. He's having one of those consistent years, and thank God he won, because if he didn't win and he was part of the championship conversation, I would not want to hear your guys the entire month of November.
Oh, I get to censor and editing. Yay. Anyway, so, but yeah, Blaney had a sweet looking car for not Martinsville, golly gee, for Charlotte's. that was an awesome paint scheme for Charlotte.
Absolutely.
There's one big thing though that we're missing about Charlotte. Chase Elliott.
Yes. Yeah, I was not proud at that moment, because if you don't remember me talking about it, Chase Elliott is my second favorite driver. To Kyle Larson. Chase Elliott flat out wrecked Denny Hamlin off of turn 4 onto the front straightaway. Yeah,
exactly like Bubba did with Larson.
Yeah, the only difference is that hands weren't thrown. So in NASCAR promptly and rightfully suspended Chase Tuesday afternoon, I believe. So good on NASCAR to shut down any speculation saying he's the golden boy and stuff like that, by saying that he's going to be suspended for this past weekend's race at Gateway. And it's not looking too great right now with the points, as the points are looking for Chase.
Did he get the same punishment as Bubba?
A 1 race suspension.
Yeah, they both got 1 race, right?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. I was thinking there's a precedent there, and they need to follow that precedent.
Well, and that's the hard part, is this is, we saw this weekend with the whole Ryan Preece deal. This has opened up a brand new can of worms for us to be talking about the rest of the year, because now it's going to be every time, okay, look back at the SMT data. What's the SMT data show? And that's exactly what everybody's doing with Ryan Preece this week. Or not Ryan Preece. Did I say Ryan Preece? I meant Austin Cindric. How rude of me. Ryan Preece did nothing wrong. It was Austin Cindric. Very rude of me. But Austin Cindric right hooked into the – and obviously there's going to need to be a lot of things to look at. The SMT data will have to be looked at. But you've opened yourself a new can of worms here. And I think it's just a coincidence that it's happened in back-to-back weeks. But I definitely think – that they have set a precedent. And so now it becomes a little bit difficult, because if they decide Cindric is not going to be suspended a week, they have to release something to ease the fans. They got to release some sort of what do they see? Show us the SMT data or something like that. That has to be the biggest point of these penalties, is they need to be able to tell us and explain it to us in a way that doesn't feel like they're just bouncing around the question. It needs to be cut and dry. What did you see on the SMT data that showed it? Maybe we just need Denny Hamlin to go post it for us every week, if that's really what it takes.
Yeah.
Because that helped out tremendously in how everybody viewed that Chase Elliott deal. So I think unless that has to happen every single week in order for those decisions to be made with confidence. But ultimately, right, this is the right move. It's not okay to right hook guys into the wall. And I know Alan Gustafson, and I think it was Alan Gustafson, and there was a couple people that had tried to bring up other incidents that, of Denny Hamlin, hooking people and stuff like that. But the thing to understand is how dangerous the right hook into the wall is. And we have already seen enough injuries as is over the last 2 seasons in NASCAR. That right hook into the wall is extremely dangerous. And I think everybody is forgetting just how safe these cars are, because that is what killed Dale Earnhardt. And we are consistently doing it on a weekly basis and okay with it. That's not okay. It needs to be a suspension every single time it happens. And I think that NASCAR is doing the right call every single time when they suspend that driver.
I'm starting to wonder if they might have to start putting the foot down even heavier. 2 races.
Yeah. And let me just say, I did say that is the sort of thing that killed Dale Earnhardt, but that is not Sterling Marlin's fault or anything like that. That's just the way racing was back then. It just happened that way. So I don't want to put any blame on anybody there in that scenario. I'm just saying, right hooks into the wall, I think we're forgetting how dangerous that was 20 years ago, and we're taking advantage of the safety that we have now. That's what my point.
And 2, yeah, these cars are safe, but remember, like you said, remember the injuries that we've been getting lately in the last couple seasons with this so-called new car.
Yeah.
It's not really new anymore, but you get what I'm saying.
Look at the in-car footage of the hit from Hamlin. That was violent, and it was scary to see how much his head moved from that with the Hans device and everything. Why are we they're creating problems that don't need to be created. Just stop right hooking people into the wall. You want to hook them into the grass on the next lap, get on his outside, and if you're not fast enough, then get a faster car. Stop right hooking people.
Another thing that I noticed is some guys wear that dirt track Hans device thing. It's not called the Hans device, but it's I forget what it's called, but y'all know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, so Larson used to wear one. He doesn't wear it anymore. Stenhouse still wears it.
I think they need to do away with that. Because what's his name? Denny Hamlin. Did he wear one? Because his head was moving around a lot.
I don't know.
And if he was, they need to do away with it and mandate everybody has to have it. Because did you all notice that too?
Yeah, it was super sketchy.
And I don't know. I think, yeah, like you said, they need to stop right hooking people. And if it continues, they need to maybe start having an iron fist down there.
I'm one of those guys, if somebody right hooks me into the wall, I am surprised that Denny didn't walk down there to go beat Chase, because I probably would have if I was in Denny's shoes. If you right hook me into the wall, I'm sorry, you've got whooping coming your way. That's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Don't right hook me into the wall.
That's 2.
Now, I noticed another thing too. This is kind of funny. I believe it was Dale Earnhardt that said, don't wreck people if you're going to wreck yourself. That's the number 1 rule about wrecking somebody. You got to know how to not wreck yourself.
Exactly.
And they haven't been doing that lately.
Nope.
And so they got to learn how to wreck somebody.
100%. So ultimately, as we stated, this is the right call by NASCAR, but I think it's going to be even more interesting to see where does this Austin Cindric situation from Gateway this weekend, where does that fall in line on this, the sort of right hooking deal, because I think we're continuing to get a better idea of how NASCAR wants to police this sort of thing. So we're going to find out in the coming days.
Let me ask you this. Do you believe that the post-race fights are making a difference, encouraging it maybe?
Not
No.
necessarily.
And I'd like to go back to what you were saying a few episodes ago, what Mason was saying about the lack of respect in the field. And it's getting worse.
Yep.
It continuously goes back to things that I've mentioned before, which is that they're not understanding that there is danger in this job. I think people forget how much danger's in it because they're very fortunately has not been a passing in NASCAR in a long time, and we hope to God it never happens again. But these guys don't. That part of their brain is left because it's been so long, and so they're not thinking about the consequences of what could happen, and so they're just kind of, you know what, I'm gonna right hook them into the wall, and they don't think how it could break their leg or how it could, affect them, with a concussion or something like that. That sort of thought just never crosses their mind in that heat of the moment, and I don't know how you get rid of that. Correct, and the only way to get rid of that is to throw a bunch of Tony Stewarts out on the track and just have them start kicking butt when somebody does something they're not supposed to, because those are the guys that really policed it. And those guys aren't there anymore. Harvick doesn't want to police it anymore because if he does, he gets called an old man. And everybody bashes on him because he's some old man. When in reality, he's doing what he should have been doing, what he needs to do to get everybody to show respect. And then he gets called an old man for it. So that's where, it's a little bit more difficult now, because even the guys that could do that sort of thing, they're going to get called an old man and out of touch because they are the ones trying to police that sort of thing. And nobody views it as that anymore when it should still be viewed that way.
You think Ross Chastain should be the next enforcer?
Get him on. Let's do it. I am very down.
Harvick can't jump over cars anymore, so
No.
I still remember that fight and that he started at what was it, Texas, with Brad Keselowski and
God, please stop. No, I don't know. I'm having PTSD from that. Please, no.
Then 2 weeks later, it was Brad Keselowski and Matt Kenseth, and Matt Kenseth jumped him in between the haulers. That was great.
I'm still mad about that Keselowski Gordon incident. Even though it was Jeff's fault, I'm still mad about that because he should have won that championship. Not biased, by the way, but shall we move on before you guys blow a gasket?
Please, can you see the redness in my face?
I actually can. So
I'm getting hangry over here.
A man's getting hangry. So let's move on to Gateway, guys. Very interesting track. The trucks and Cup were at Gateway this weekend, and the Xfinity were in Portland. Very unique road course over there. So our Truck Series winner was Grant Enfinger, his second win of the season, securing him into the playoffs. He led 65 laps. It was actually a pretty good race for the Truck Series at Gateway. I enjoyed myself, except for Haley Deegan just getting completely dumped, which seems to happen like every other race, unfortunately. But I hope she comes up to Xfinity because I feel like that type of car suits her so much better than the truck, and the trucks are they've got a problem down there, with the respect and just the drivers. But anyway, that's where I stand on that.
We're gonna have a whole episode about RESPCT at this point.
Maybe that should be our title.
Hey, I can make it the title. So our Xfinity Series winner was Stone Cold Cole Custer, his first win of the season, and he only led 4 laps.
Again, he led the most important one, though.
Correct. And he started from the rear, and he won stage 2, I think. He won one of the stages, but it seemed like Allgaier was going to get the win, or Parker Klickerman. It would have been very cool to see Parker Klickerman get an Xfinity Series win, but he'll have another great shot at that at Sonoma. It'll be the first time. Yes, they're getting so much better, and his time, like you said, his time is coming, and he's going to have another good shot at Sonoma. The Xfinity Series is going to Sonoma for the first time. So that's a little fun fact. Yeah.
Not back, but they're there. That's going to be interesting.
Yeah. So Cole Custer won the Xfinity race. And we had a little post-race scuffle between Jeb Burton and Chandler Smith. Did you guys see the tweet that Chandler Smith put out about that?
I did not.
I did.
Man, that was funny. That was funny.
You need a graphic of it on screen.
Chandler Smith that whole debacle was interesting because if you watch the replay, I mean, the two of them were just throwing haymakers at each other for like 3 laps. Not even like it was just this like whole like 7 corners of just like shoving each other into it, and then finally Chandler Smith was like, "All right, bye." Or I think that's how. So it just very interesting to say the least. Just it looked like two guys that I couldn't even tell if they were racing each other or if they were trying to wreck each other. Like it was quite interesting. But Chandler Smith finds himself in some controversy once again.
Yeah.
That feels like a Dale Earnhardt thing, though. You don't know if he's trying to wreck you or if he's just racing you real hard.
That's what I couldn't tell. I'm like, are they just racing hard or like this? And then eventually it just got like, oh, okay, Chandler's mad, and because it looked very like it was a very interesting little scuffle there, and obviously Jeb had a problem with it, and I think he spoke more with I think it was Matt Collig that was right there that he had more words with than he did with Chandler Smith himself.
I think it was Matt Collig who had Burton in a chokehold or something. So, very crazy Xfinity race, especially with the mechanical issues that we saw there with Hemrick and Riley Herbst. So that was interesting to see.
Speaking of mechanical issues.
Yeah. Then came Sunday. So for Sunday, our winner at Gateway was Kyle Busch. It's his 3rd win of the season. His season tying William Byron for the most wins of the season. Led 121 laps. Very dominant win. So yeah, I was enjoying the race until the last 30 laps. So I'm going to go on my rant right now.
All yours.
Man, let me tell you something. I was having a good day until the last 30 laps. And I texted Mason after this race. I'm like, I am mad. I am very mad about this. So let's start with the brake rotors, okay? When you have 4 different cars that have 4 brake rotor issues that result in wrecks, that's a problem, especially when they're very unexpected at a track like Gateway. I texted my friend about this last night. He said, and I texted him, this is a huge issue because we did not expect these brake failures. It's June, of course, temperatures are going to be up, but this is completely unexpected because we did not have anything like this last year at Gateway. So, and I also texted him that this is the Pocono of short tracks because it's like a 1.3 mile track. So it's a very fast track with heavy braking. So naturally we'd expect the brake wear to be significant. Not like that. So we had some very heavy accidents, starting with Carson Hocevar, who was having a great run up until his wreck. It looked like a tire blew initially, but the brakes did give out on him. And you could see pretty much on all of the replays of all 4 brake failures that the brakes just exploded. And it looked like I said, it looked like a tire failure. But if I'm not mistaken, it looked like it was the brakes on the right side of the car. I could be wrong about that, but we did have 4 different cars.
The right side. In the shot of Reddick's car, it was on the right side of the car that the brake rotor blew. Okay.
Like I said, it might be the same for the rest of the drivers. I'm not 1,000% certain on that. But so we had Carson Hocevar and Noah Gragson, who are Chevy drivers. And then we had Tyler Reddick and Bubba Wallace, who are 2311 teammates, which are Toyota. Noah Gragson's was violent. It was a very hard hit. So I am curious to see if we get anything in the coming days about any concussion testing or anything like that. Because when he initially hit with the left rear corner of the car. So we'll see how the new rear clips do with the car that they mandated earlier this year, as well as they actually installed some new rear clips at Charlotte. So we will see how they do in the next coming days. So I'm hoping that nothing comes out for Noah. That's my stance on that. But when you have 4 different brake rotor failures, that's a huge issue, especially when they're all unexpected.
Are the brakes spec?
I'm not sure about that. I feel like they are, but I'm not 100% certain on that.
Because if they're spec, that's a bigger issue.
Yes.
Now,
Like especially with the new car.
does it concern you at all, considering we go to this high-speed track with really heavy braking zones? Obviously, we're going to Nashville in 2 weeks. If this really is a problem with the next-gen car, or if this is a problem with the track, like Chris alluded to before we got started recording, he mentioned that it's possible. Is this a track thing or is this a car thing? I think we'll know after Nashville, because you're going to have those same high speeds followed by, braking 60 miles an hour into the corner. So I think we're going to know our answer by the end of June, whether or not this is a next-gen problem or whether or not this was a problem just at Gateway, or even if this was just a very fluky thing that it might have had to do with the heat, right? I don't know. I think it'd be interesting to see what was the temperature difference between this year to last year at Gateway 2.
It could have been with the heat, and it could have been with the weather delays and how the environment was changing, because the brakes, they obviously get hot when they're in use, but we all had, from the point of the first lightning delay on Sunday, we had only run 2 laps. So the brakes weren't quite up to temperature, but they were getting there. And there was like an hour and a half lightning delay. So they sat there, they cooled off, and they had time, to possibly crack, weaken, whatever. But going back to Nashville, there were some brake failures in the 2021 race with the Gen 6 car with Ryan Blaney. I don't remember last year. I don't think so. There may have been one, but I don't remember it. But we will see if this is a next-gen issue or if this is a track issue. I'm leaning more towards a track issue for Gateway, but I can't say anything for certain on this. So that's my thought on the brake rotors.
I hope we don't find out the hard way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the last 30 laps. Like I said, I was enjoying the race until the last 30 laps, until all hell pretty much broke loose. And should have seen it coming, obviously, but I was hopeful. I was hopeful for a nice, respectful, just run to the finish. No, that didn't happen. So we had 4 or 5 different caution flags in the last 30, 35 laps or so. One of which involving Austin Dillon, Cindric, and Ricky Stenhouse Jr., which we alluded to earlier. I don't see anything wrong that Cindric did, in my opinion. I found it very funny that Austin Dillon is calling for Cindric to be suspended, but we will have to see what the SMT data says. But the interesting part about it is that the power was out the entire time after the lightning, or not after the lightning delay, after lap, 80 or 100, because Fox lost signal to the broadcast channels, and nobody could get their signals to the war rooms back in Charlotte. So I'm wondering if they even have that data ready for NASCAR to show, or whatever. But we'll see what NASCAR's decision on that is in the next couple of days. I personally don't see anything that Cindric did of note. I thought that Dillon slid up into Cindric and pretty much caused that little chain reaction. But overall, like we said, not a lot of respect on the racetrack, especially in the last 30 laps, and that made me pretty mad.
Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, quite a victory for Mr. Kyle Cush, as the internet likes to call him. I think Kyle Cush is honestly a great nickname for him because he looked so calm, cool, and collective on each of those last restarts, showed why he's a two-time champion. So Kyle Cush with another victory, third of the year at RCR. What a difference change of scenery makes for one driver, isn't it?
Yep. It's crazy. You have to think about, like, what if he did stay at Gibbs? Would he still be winning races as much as he used to, or would he just be, I don't know, a kind of a mid pack guy? Yeah.
I think RCR has saved his career, and who knows? We may look back in a decade and think maybe he saved RCR. You never know.
I hate to say it, talking about RCR, because Austin Dillon, he's a good driver. I respect him a lot, but I feel like he's kind of been a little bit of a bust. Because I thought he was going to be probably have 20, 30 wins in his career. But how many has he had? Maybe 5?
I think 4 or 5.
Like 4, I think. Yeah.
So I feel like that's part of RCR's downfall. And just because Austin Dillon has been underwhelming.
I think it's kind of I can see where you're going with that, because I think like having Kyle Busch just kind of walk in and really elevate that team, I think it has shown, and even when Tyler Reddick was there and Tyler Reddick was winning races the way he was, it really showed the gap to Austin Dillon. And so if this was any other sort of scenario, right, and if this was any other sort of team where the boss of Austin Dillon was not his grandfather, he would have been out of this ride multiple years ago. So that's an extremely good point, Chris, because he would not have been around. He would not be in this car right now if his grandfather wasn't the boss. And he's now been outrun by 2 guys that have come into that organization after him, and he has gotten outrun and they have won more races than he has in his entire tenure. I mean, Busch is at 3. If Dillon's at 4, Busch could hit the same amount of wins as Dillon that Dillon's taken 8 years to earn, literally next week. Yep. I mean, that's insane. I think that it has very much showed where Austin Dillon just doesn't have it. And I think maybe that's where we see some of that frustration out of the media room yesterday with the immediate call out for Austin Cindric. Because, I mean, hey, it could have been a lot easier if he was running up front with his teammate, but he wasn't. So just point it out.
Ooh, no, you're not wrong. You are not wrong about that.
And 2, it still pains me that he's driving the 3 car.
Yeah, I don't care for Austin Dillon. I never have.
Respect him. I totally respect him, but I don't know, man.
Yeah, it's one of them deals. But
I'm sure he's a really cool guy and all too, but
he is. I said that. I've met him twice. He's a great guy. I met him one time while he was eating a sandwich at the hauler. Great guy. I mean, fantastic dude. I've got a signed car from him, but that doesn't mean I'm not gonna, I'm not saying he's a better race car driver or I'm not saying that I'm a better race car driver than him either. I'm just piggybacking on what Chris said. He has not lived up to the expectations that he was supposed to live up to. And he is half the reason RCR has been down in the dumps the way they have. And guess who the guys have been that have picked them up? It has not had a name Dillon behind it. So
whatever happened to his brother?
Ty got a little too drunk on twisted teas and is racing somewhere. I'm just kidding.
No.
Ty is what? Is he with He
was with Spire.
Say he's with Spire. I do see him. He's in a 77. He isn't. Ty's had some solid runs, but just Ty and Austin are Xfinity Series. They're Justin Allgaiers, man. They belong it down there every week, racing for wins and stuff like that. They're Xfinity Series guys. I think we've seen kind of over the years guys that work very clear on like this guy. This is a Justin Allgaier. He's an Xfinity guy, and that's not a diss on Justin Allgaier by all means, because he's a heck of a race car driver. But I'm just saying there are some guys who are more successful at the bottom tier series, and you just have to recognize that. I think Matt Crafton's definitely recognized that. And honestly, with the way this year's gone for Cole Custer, I wouldn't be surprised if he recognizes that either, because Cole Custer has not set the world on fire in Xfinity. I'm glad he got that win this week, but he hasn't set the world on fire. So
you could say the same thing about Ron Hornaday too.
Mm-hmm.
And look at him. He's in the top 75.
Yeah. I think at some point you have to be willing to say, you know what, I'm going to do better running down at the lower, at some of the lower series. And you have to bite the bullet. And it works out. Sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't. And sometimes you can stay up in the Cup Series and it does work in your favor, i.e. Daniel Suarez, right? Where there was opportunities for him to go back to Xfinity, went with Trackhouse, and it's worked out really well for him. So there are ways that it can work out really well, but Austin Dillon will never be a perennial championship contender as long as he is racing for Richard Childress Racing. And honestly, as long as he's racing in the Cup Series, if I'm just being honest.
Yep.
You think
if he does go back to the Xfinity Series, I think he'll win another championship. He'll become a two-time champion if he goes back to the Xfinity Series.
He'd be an instant championship favorite for sure. I think he'd have a very similar, if not much better career in the Xfinity than we saw Elliott Sadler have for many years, who was very successful and kept his name alive way longer than it ever should have been alive. Sadler was not, he was falling off the face of the planet in the late 2010s, the early 2010s. So, he revived his career in Xfinity, and he's looked at very differently for those last few Xfinity years. I don't view him as the driver driving the 38 M&M's car. I view him as driving the Credit One Financial car. And so that's what the difference has to be. Austin Dillon has to just kind of at some point say, you know what? I need to go back to winning races every single week, being competitive every single week, and not just being competitive because we had a good 2-tire pit stop when everybody else went for 4. That's the point. Because his wins have come on Daytona. They've come at Texas when he took no tires and everybody else did. And tires didn't matter because Texas is crap. So Austin Dillon's an Xfinity Series driver racing in the Cup Series. It's a bold statement, but I don't think it's a wrong statement.
No, I think you're right. And it kind of reminds me too of AJ Allmendinger. He's kind of become relevant again because he raced in the Busch Series or Xfinity Series. And
look at how almost irrelevant he's become since he's gone back up to Cup because he hasn't been as successful.
Except for road courses.
Oh yeah, he'll be a menace this weekend. He's going to be a menace. I am not denying that. But he hasn't been the same guy we all knew it was going to happen last year because he wasn't outright winning oval races, right? So we knew he was going to struggle, but we've seen him really deep in the field in certain weeks, and he has consistently gotten outrun by Justin Haley on these oval tracks. That is a concern.
Yeah, there's a couple of guys like that, and two with IndyCar. I think they had an issue with that with Marco Andretti, but I don't know what happened, but he eventually decided to part ways with IndyCar, but yeah, I think it's a similar situation. And do you think his career, Austin Dillon's career, would change if some weird thing happened and he ended up at Hendrick somehow?
Oh God, no, please. Oh God, I don't like that thought. Ooh.
Driving the 5.
I can see the goosebumps that just hit Jacob just now. He is freaked out by that thought.
I'm 5.
You know what? No. To your point, he definitely probably would have been more successful, and he probably have at least one race that solidifies oh, he's a Cup driver, right? But you know, it's just one of those things. He had his chances, and I think at some point you have to say things have ran their course. How long has Austin Dillon been in the Cup Series now?
Almost
8,
10
9?
years.
Yeah. I mean, how long until he finally, becomes the driver we all expected? He's not. And I think that, at some point, RFK said, hey, Ricky Stenhouse, it's not working out. We really liked what you did in Xfinity, but you can't do it in Cup. And, fortunately for Austin Dillon, his grandfather's not going to do that, right? But that's what happened to Ricky. Ricky Stenhouse is the perfect example of how things should go for Austin Dillon. Except Stenhouse stayed in the Cup Series, and damn it, he won a Daytona 500. So he's been really solid, and I think he's actually gotten better in the Cup Series since he was with RFK. And it's sad that he's not there because he'd be running really good with RFK, but he's improved. And it's just one of those things where I think too many people think it's a negative to go back down to a mid-tier series and work on your craft for a few years, because I think people forget how much winning boosts confidence. It's why Grosjean can't win. It's why Grosjean's struggling, because he's not winning, and it's killing his confidence, right? Winning fix it. It's not going to fix everything, but it will fix damn near everything. So if you just win, that's the big thing, and he just hasn't been able to do that. And so I think going down to Xfinity, win some races, then we'll talk, right? But I can say all this. Austin Dillon's going to be in the Cup Series the next freaking 6-7 years, so it's irrelevant anyways.
Yeah, it's kind of like, too, you have in baseball, you have some guys that they're struggling in the MLB, then they get sent down to AAA just to kind of work on everything, work on their mechanics, and then they come back up, they're successful.
Yeah, sometimes you have to have that reality check that's going to fix your confidence, and things have to get a little bit worse before they can get better. And so that's kind of where that comes into play.
Yeah, I agree completely. And I don't know. I mean, at least put him into 33. Is 33 RCR number?
It should be.
As far as I know.
Put him into 33, man. Get Ross Chastain or Kevin Harvick to drive the 3. Or even Junior, if Junior ever comes back and does the odd race.
I wish, but I don't think Junior will ever come back to the Cup Series.
I don't think he will.
Yeah, I think that would be bad anyways. Not bad for the sport, but bad for him. In terms of...
Well, and bad for Amy's mental health as well, man. I mean...
Oh, yeah. All right. So I think we've said enough about that. We got Sonoma coming up this coming weekend for Xfinity and Cup. It's going to be the first time, as I said earlier, it's going to be the first time ever that Xfinity has been there. So it should be a great race. Parker Kligerman should have a good shot at finally getting his first Xfinity win. It's been close several times throughout his career.
I like Parker a lot.
I love Parker. Just quick note: I've met him before. We were passing I guess it was my great aunt and I. We went to Richmond when I used to go to Richmond once a year or so. Anyway, I got pit passes for my birthday. Whenever it was, I guess it was the same race that Larson won. I remember that now. And we were going through the fan tunnel, and Parker just happened to be coming right up through the fans, and I said, "That's Parker Kligerman." So it was pretty cool to just kind of quickly say hi to him and give him a fist bump. But anyway, so Sonoma, as I said earlier, Xfinity and Cup are going to be there. Who are we thinking for Cup?
Allmendinger. Mainly because I really like Allmendinger.
Yeah.
See,
I could see Busch too.
Busch, yeah. I went to the standings to go find my driver, and I have my 2 picks. But last note on Austin Dillon, he's 30th in the standings. I think they had a penalty, but he is 30th in the standings currently.
I didn't realize he was that low.
Yes.
Him and Briscoe are down that low.
My points are valid, okay? My points are very valid. But if I'm picking this week, give me MTJ once again. The man lit it up for me a couple weeks ago. MTJ once again. His one of his early wins came at Sonoma. I remember him winning in that 56 Napa Auto machine way back in the day. Give me MTJ this weekend. And if I'm picking a dark horse, if I've got to pick a dark horse, I kind of like Austin Cindric this weekend. I do. I like a Penske driver, and I don't know if Blaney's going to be phenomenal this weekend. And Logano's been kind of hit or miss, right? So I could see any of the Penske drivers being solid, but I think Cindric wakes up a little bit this week, and it'll be an eye-opening weekend for him for sure. Trying to open up a lot of eyes around the track for sure.
Yeah. So I was thinking about that earlier.
If he's not suspended, mind you.
He's not going to get suspended. But I don't think he'll get suspended.
Barring suspension, my second pick is Michael McDowell, okay?
Okay.
I'm surprised y'all didn't pick Suarez.
Well, hold on there. I haven't picked yet.
You know what? I'm picking Suarez. Never mind. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
Sonoma is one of those races where pretty much anyone can win. It's kind of like, as I like to think about it, the Talladega of road courses. So, man, I really wanted Allmendinger, but you know what? Just for the heck of it, just give me the 9. I pick I'm going to go with a safe pick with Chase Elliott. And for my dark horse, I feel like it'd be cheating if I pick Suarez as my dark horse because he's really good at Sonoma.
I thought about it as mine, as my dark horse, right? But
I think he'll get a top 5 at least.
Yeah. I feel like that's kind of cheating because that's where he won last year, and he's going to have
I give you a pass. Suarez is outside the top 15 in points. I give you a pass.
All right, fine, Suarez.
All right.
So those are our picks for Sonoma. And there is one other important race happening this coming weekend. The 24 Hours of Le Mans is this weekend, and we're all excited for it. You know why, right? Because
no matter what time I tune into the race during the day, it's still on.
Exactly. That's exactly right. We are going to have a NASCAR stock car there for the first time.
Oh,
and
I'm videos of it.
I'm excited
like
for
the pace car.
It looks like a transformer.
But hey, it was 3 miles an hour faster this weekend. That is interesting. Very interesting.
It gained 3 seconds in practice on the first day from a 356 to a 353. So I am I'm excited. It's gonna be fun.
I genuinely thought that it was the safety car at first when I first saw the pictures.
It does just look like a pace car in front of the field.
Yeah.
And it's only going to look more like that considering it's 3 miles an hour faster than the rest of the cars. So it's always going to be at the front of the field.
What class is it in? GT Pro? Or whatever their equivalent is?
I thought I definitely could be wrong. I thought I had read it was LMP2, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, we'll find this out later. So Le Mans is going to be interesting this weekend. Very prestigious race, and if it doesn't blow up, I'd consider it a success. So we'll see how the engine holds. 24 hours is obviously a very long race. So I'm interested to see how the engine is going to hold out on that thing.
It's ironic because it's become more of a stock car in a sports car race.
Yeah.
And sports cars are more so stock cars than actual stock cars.
Yeah.
I always found
Yeah.
that ironic.
So we'll see how it goes for Garage 56 and Hendrick Motorsports this coming weekend at Le Mans. Gentlemen, do we have anything else to add on to what we've said in the past little bit?
I actually do. We can just edit this at a different point. That's a great thing about editing. But I actually want to talk about NASCAR and road courses. And I was actually thinking about this the other day, and with wet weather racing and how we saw it at Wilkesboro, although that's not a road course, but they're really going further and experimenting with it. Do you think road course cars, do you think they should maybe think about putting lights on them?
I think it's been. I think they installed. Like you mean like taillights and headlights, right?
Yeah.
I think it would be interesting. I think that they've done a really good job, especially after COTA a couple years ago, of figuring out how to add in some of those lights and stuff like that. The real thing that it would become was it just depends on. There's a lot of things that go into that, and I think that it definitely could work, but at that same time, it's going to cost each and every team a lot more money to field a road course car than it already does now. Part of the whole thing with this car was to make that road course car almost as seamless as the short track car and almost as seamless as the intermediate car. So I think that there would be some sort of struggle there with that, because then you go away from the exact reason they kind of went for that Gen 7 in the first place, was to have that equal car that can almost run all four of the different courses and stuff. So it's kind of 50-50, right? If they do that, they're really leaning heavily into the different car thing, which we've gone with for many, many years in the sport. So I think it's definitely a possibility, but I think NASCAR has made some good changes. I think they'll continue to make changes, but I think they'll do everything they can to avoid making that change.
I mean, that's fair, yeah. And I was actually thinking about that train wreck at Circuit of the Americas a couple of years ago. It was a fun race to watch, I'll admit, but it was a mess. And I was thinking that would be a race of all races where they needed headlights and taillights.
I think it's just managing, right? Like you have to, I think too, it's just we can't send them out there in the exact same scenarios that we would send an F1 car out there in the rain, right?
I don't think an F1 car would have raced in that. I think it's too heavy with F1 and sports car racing.
And that's the thing. And that's the thing, right? Is it's depends on how much it's raining too, because there has to be a limit on when NASCAR wants to send cars out on the track and when they want to take them off because it's raining too hard. And maybe that's what really helps them decide based off of their lights. Like maybe they base it off of the lights. As soon as you can't, they have all those in-car cameras. As soon as those lights start to become invisible, the ones that they have at the top of the back windshield, as soon as those start to kind of lose their visibility, then they need to be able to throw cautions and stuff like that. I think that would be the strategy they would stick with the most to kind of really fix that main issue. But thankfully we haven't seen anything like that at COTA or really at any track since then. So I like the rain races. They're entertaining. They're fun.
I do too.
I think I look back at that Xfinity Charlotte Roval race from a couple of years ago. One of my favorite races. And I don't sit here like as a regular NASCAR fan, you don't sit here and just remember Xfinity races off the top of your head. I remember that race very well. I go back and watch the highlights every now and then because it was so entertaining. Rain races can be entertaining if they're done right. I think NASCAR's made strides there. I think they have to continue to make strides. But, adding headlights and taillights, it's 50-50. I think they kind of want to keep that sort of that all-around car in there. So I think it makes it more difficult. But I wouldn't be surprised to see them try to add more lights in different areas as well. I really wouldn't.
Yeah, maybe like neon, like sports car does on the corners of it.
Mm-hmm. You could do something similar to the All-Star race where there's the underglow. That the underglow might help in that sort of scenario, right? Maybe, maybe there's a way to attach some lights to the diffuser or something. I don't know. But there are ways to fix it. They've made some strides there, but I believe until we have another rain race, there won't be a ton of strides.
Now, let me ask y'all something about, speaking of rain races, let me ask y'all this. Do you think we'll be getting competitive pit stops in the rain anytime soon?
No.
Or ever?
I don't think so.
If it became a more regular thing, then maybe. But I think it's just because it's too irregular, and it's definitely just something that is still it's very new to the sport of NASCAR. So I definitely think it's because I mean we had rain tires in the past, but we very rarely had to run them. Because isn't it just hilarious that it rains at every track? We can't run rain tires, and then the tracks that we can run rain tires, it doesn't rain.
It doesn't.
Isn't that a funny coincidence? Like,
Yeah.
We can run rain tires at Phoenix now. That's freaking awesome. It has rained one time on Phoenix race weekend in 2 decades. Like, that's awesome. Great. But, like, it sucks because those tracks that get a lot of rain, we haven't been able to implement those changes.
Now, would they be able to use it on the new layout of Homestead?
No.
No.
I don't know if they'll ever get to a point where they can use them on the tracks we have now. I think that
I don't think they will.
I think we've gone as far as we can with that, just because there's like
banking too high. That's one thing.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. And then the one time, like I think it's easier to just not do it at all than to do it and then have the one time that it all goes awry. It could go great 30 times, but the one time it all goes crazy, they'll never live it down. And so I think that's where it's viewed.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right about that. I think that it's still too experimental, but if I can see them trying competitive pit stops once there's a few more rain races, which I would like to see, other than the fact that it's just plain entertaining. I would like to see more rain races just for the experimental part of it. And it's kind of weird seeing NASCAR run on a FIA grade 1 track at COTA. That was always weird to me.
It is interesting, but especially having that first race be such a rain race, it definitely felt different than anything we've ever experienced in NASCAR before. But it credit to NASCAR for being open to trying to fix the rain. And I know many people mentioned that these new oval rain tires are just ways to get that, make the TV guys happy. And as much as it may be that, I think it has helped as well. And I feel like we saw, a very solid race at North Wilkesboro. And especially, I mean, who knows? Maybe it's a way for them to shove night races more into this, 1 to 2 more night races in the schedule where if it rains, right, we can throw the rain tires on and they can keep going. I think it adds a little bit to that as well because it's important to get the race done when it needs to get done. The ratings for the Coke 600 on a Monday were fantastic. Imagine what they would have been on a Sunday. So,
another thing about it is we criticize NASCAR about making stupid decisions a lot, but there's a lot of good that they've done too in recent
100%.
years. Like bringing more road courses in. I love that. I love road courses. And then the rain tires and experimenting with rain tires. That would be, I think that's a very good thing that they're trying.
I think they continuously do a good job of adding to what I've mentioned before. This is the best all-around racing series, one of the best all-around racing series in the entire world. You got to be good at short tracks, road courses, dirt tracks, big ovals, drafting. You've got to be good at everything that makes a race car driver a race car driver. And I think that is a really good thing for this sport because it makes people want to have eyes on it.
Right. And one last thing I want to add too. I promise this won't take too long. It's just a rant that I've been thinking about writing an article on. Y'all said you don't really have a number 1 driver. Mason said it. Of course, Jacob does. Kyle Larson. But I don't either, honestly. And that's a problem with NASCAR. You don't have any household names anymore. Like Tony Stewart's retired. Dale Jr.'s retired. Then, of course, Dale Earnhardt's gone now.
Jeff Gordon.
Yeah, he's retired. You don't have those names anymore.
It's exactly why everybody needs to lay off Chastain.
Yeah, but at the same time, he's probably the best thing to happen to NASCAR in 20 years.
He is.
And so and I think he's this generation's Dale Sr., which is a big thing, which is saying a lot because I know people are going to be mad about that, but I really do think he is kind of like our generation's Dale. And so that just shows that NASCAR has a personality problem. But anyway.
Well,
that'll be on next week's
Yeah.
show. We'll talk more about personality problems next week.
yeah.
There's a lot to talk about with NASCAR right now, but
Oh, yeah.
what a show this week. What a show this week. Lots to talk about.
Yeah.
A lot of passion out of the three of us this week. I love it, guys.
Yeah, we all went on a rant between the three of us. Yeah, we all had at least one rant that we went on. So, guys, do we have any final comments for today?
I think that's it for me.
Hashtag fire Austin Dillon.
Jeez. Oh, wow. All right.
I really opened up a can of worms there.
Well,
you did, because before this show, I didn't even know I had this animosity towards him. I didn't.
Well,
this is all bottled up in the last hour because I haven't had a piece of pizza this morning.
Well, when I promote this
Blame
episode,
Austin
I will.
Dillon.
When I promote this episode, I will be sure to tweet at Austin Dillon for this. So we'll be fine.
I won't be interviewing Austin Dillon anytime soon.
You're gonna
All
start
right, gentlemen.
with him.
Yeah, he's gonna remember me as the dude that he signed a diecast for while he was eating his sandwich. And next time, he's just gonna finish his sandwich and not sign my diecast. So that's fine.
Or throw a sandwich at you.
Or
Exactly. He was eating a tuna sandwich, so I would have hated it. So it would have worked out well.
Ew. Oh man.
All
right, gentlemen. Guys, that'll wrap it up for us. My name is Jacob Barker. I'm once again joined by Chris Shoemaker and Mason Wood. Gentlemen, where can we find you on social media and BSP?
I'm on Twitter, CJ Outside Line, and my BSP username thing, article writing thing is Christopher Shoemaker. And yeah, you can see all the articles that I've written there.
Absolutely. You guys can check me out on Twitter at Mace Hollywood. I post all of my updates there. Been working on a lot of good football content if you guys are interested in what happened to DeAndre Hopkins recently. Why did the Cardinals cut him and how it's good for them? Check it out. It is up on Backsports page. So I've been talking about the Cardinals a lot lately. But definitely make sure you're checking out my Twitter. I've posted all my updates. Make sure you're checking out Backsports page's Twitter as well. Make sure you're following us at Backsports page. We've done a really good job over the last few weeks with our social media guys. Very proud to be a part of this company. So a lot of good things going forward, and definitely a great week of racing to look forward to. So great episode this week, guys.
Check out other podcasts too.
Yeah, you guys can find me at JWBarker24 on Twitter and Instagram, and you can find me in our motorsports section on Backsports page. We got a lot of content coming up. Got a couple championship seasons in the work and another couple upcoming projects. So we'll have more details on that in the future. So, gentlemen, thank you for joining me, and we will see you guys in the next episode. Hope you guys enjoyed, and you guys have a great week, and we'll see you guys next time.
We'll see you.
Adios.
Have fun. Make new friends.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching this most recent edition of the Outside Line podcast. If you like what you heard, make sure to check us out on Spotify at The Outside Line. And if you liked Christopher, Jacob, and I's opinions, make sure to check us out on Backsports page for more articles and opinions about F1, NASCAR, and IndyCar. Thank you again for watching The Outside Line.